Welcome to The Real Look. I'm Bruce Hardy.
And I'm Chase Williams.
I'm so excited to introduce this episode's Northern Lights guest, Josh Adams with Keller Williams Realty, Coeur d'Alene, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Josh runs a 99.9% word-of-mouth business. No CRM, no drips, no cold calling, no farming. Yet he's still managed to take the spot for units sold by solo agents at Keller Williams Realty, Coeur d'Alene for 9 consecutive years, from 2013 to 2022. In 2022, he closed over $22 million in volume. Josh prides himself on focusing on his clients, not his paychecks. He has found if he does that, the referrals just keep on coming. Please enjoy this conversation with Josh Adams. Well, g'day, Josh. Welcome to The Real Look. Where does today's podcast find you?
Beautiful Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's a little rainy out today.
Yeah, you got to love fall in the Northwest. Well, hey, Josh, we all have a story. We all have a life prior to real estate. So give us a little bit of your story. What were you doing prior to getting into real estate?
I grew up in a small little farm ranch town in southern Idaho, about 800 people and maybe 20 or so people in my graduating class. So, I mean, the highway was a dead end at the little town in the valley. You could head out the mountains from my house up into the mountains and stand in Idaho, Utah, and Nevada at the same time.
What town was that?
Oakley, Idaho. You know, picking clods out of the potatoes at harvest season and moving hand lines and hoeing beets and all kinds of fun stuff. Had a little lawn mowing business, mowed some lawns, and got a good experience. 4-H, FFA, played all the sports. They needed bodies, so we had to play every sport. So got a lot of fun there. Eagle Scout. Went to Idaho State University for undergrad and grad school. My dad was a school teacher and a coach, so I did what I was supposed to do, you know, get good grades, get a college degree, and get a job for a good company. And I actually did that after my bachelor's degree at Idaho State. One of the directors from the INEL had come and taught a class. Unbeknownst to us, he was going to offer someone a job at the end of the year. So I had an amazing contract and pretty neat job in the HR department at the INEL there in Idaho Falls. I took that job. They helped pay for grad school. I was a bartender server on the weekends. I was single, so I kept that job and worked at the INEL during the day, took some grad classes at night, got a master's degree, and I just wasn't the type to sit in an office. I left that and moved to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. My family thought I was nuts. Was a bartender server, knew I could make good money doing that, met a lot of folks, and owned a Line-X franchise here in town, 2004-ish to 2008, 2009. Sold it and got my real estate license in maybe August of 2008.
Good timing. What caused you to think about getting into real estate?
You know, it's something I always had an interest in. High school, I think the Century 21 commercial ads kind of really got to me, you know, and I liked the signs and it was interesting. Once I moved up here and bought that Line-X franchise, I bought a rental house here and an acreage here. I'm thinking about development and kind of was investing in real estate anyway. The Line-X stuff was fun. That's a neat finished product. There's a lot of nasty chemicals and a bunch of stuff when you're doing the work. I happened into that. I knew the kid that was running it. He was great at doing the bed liners in the shop, but he wasn't good at going out and setting up the accounts and the wholesale accounts and good with people. So he was hurting. You know, I could probably come in and pick up all the accounts and service things better and do what needed to be done. So that was an amazing lesson in business in itself. Had good numbers on it, sold it, wanted to do real estate. So got my license.
And Bruce alluded to that. So it was 2008 in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. You're a brand new real estate agent. Tell us how that start into your career looked. What happened that first year in real estate for you?
It was pretty funny. Right around that time, I crashed my motorcycle up in the mountain, slid sideways and flew into a side of the mountain and bashed my chest out and popped some ribs out of my rib cage like all of them. So I remember walking into the office, I could barely carry my little briefcase at first. And, you know, there was kind of a lot of doom and gloom or things weren't that amazing. And one thing I didn't realize the full power of was all the people that I had networked with to build that other business. And I was a bartender server in a very popular restaurant lounge. You know, if you're a good server and a good person, those people are going to feel that, realize that, get to know you. And so I had business owners and politicians and the news people you see on TV and geeks like me and every walk of life. Like I got to know them real well. They got to know everything about me. So a lot of good trust and a lot of networking and relationships built in that area. And then to build that business that I bought, I was anywhere I could be in front of people, a pop-up tent at the fairgrounds and shaking hands. And I'm really good at that face-to-face stuff. So 2009, my first year in the business, Jason Walker knew a lot of people and he offered me a buyer's agent position. I didn't know what to think, going into it pretty new. I accepted that. So I was a buyer's agent for Jason Walker for that first year in 2009. We are completely different people. I love Jason. Yeah, I just saw him 2 nights ago, but he's very organized and by the book, which is great, right? We're all different humans. So I did 18 transactions in 2009, which were pretty good numbers for first year in the business or even a seasoned agent at that time, I think. It was a bit frustrating. I think 16 of those people were just straight up out of my network, and 2 of them came from our 1-800 numbers and the calls and, came from sign calls. And I won a couple deals over that way, but 16 or so of those were straight out of my network. And at that point, I realized the power of know you, like you, trust you. I went on 28 units on my own in 2010, 38 units in 2012, another 38 in 2013, and then 47, 48, 56, 52-ish every year since.
Knowing what you know today, I mean, if you were to look at that starting out as a buyer's agent on a team, what would you say were the advantages of being part of Jason's team, for example? Even though I understand those leads came to you as a result of your relationships, but was there value in being on a team at that stage in your career?
I've had a lot of people come and ask that question. I think it depends on the person, really. I'm glad I did what I did with Jason. I saw all the systems. It's completely not my style, nor do I do that. Like I'm pretty much from 2010 to now. I don't farm. I don't cold call. I don't knock doors. I don't do anything. I just, take care of the client, and they pretty much become referral clients for life. I don't have a drip system. I don't have a CRM. But, not everyone can do it like that. I've been in the Gary Keller's top 100 for the last 3 or since 2018 or 2019 or something for quite a few years. And, I kind of felt like the odd man out. Those guys are all great agents. And I feel like they've got licensed agents and staff, and I'm a true solo agent, right? So I'm kind of the odd person out in a lot of those groups. But I remember Gary saying there's a handful of agents that have a good network of 10, 15 people that can just get their base, and they refer and they keep treating people good and just add to that base. So I kind of wanted to raise my hand and say, hey, that's me. Just treat people good and it comes back around for sure.
It's easy for us to hear that and say, yeah, that's for sure. We got to treat our people right. But what does that mean to you? How do you go about that in the course of a relationship or a transaction and even beyond? Because I'd love to kind of understand how you go about treating your clients, what you would determine as well.
That's a great question. And there's, lots of jokes around the office for quite a few years that my way is not real teachable. You can't replicate my style very easy, right? It's not super teachable. So, I remember that time they had me talk, and I think this touches on your question. You not only are treating your clients very, very well. One thing I talked about was treating all the other agents in town respectably. 2020, 2021 rolled around. You heard like, oh, I wrote 20 offers for this buyer. Please accept, please accept. And, I did 56 and 52 deals those 2 years respectively. And if I was one of 20 offers, all the other top agents in town had all the listings, and they knew me and they wanted to work with me if my buyer was qualified. If all numbers were the same, I was going to get that offer. And I even got a couple conventional loan offers accepted over other cash offers because they knew my lender was solid and they'd worked with me 20 or 30 times every year for the last quite a few years. So that was one thing I talked about. Not only are you taking care of your clients and they feel that at the end, you're also treating the title folks and the other agents here in town respectively. You got to do what's right for your client, but you negotiate in a positive way and lay out what you're trying to get across to that agent to then relate to their seller or their buyer. A lot of people forget that. Like I've had agents that are screaming over this deal, that deal. It's out of everyone's control, whatever comes up. And they're starting to get mad and screaming and yelling. And I just stay calm. And I'm like, hey, I don't want to take it there. Like, why don't you think about it for a little bit? Call me back. And they call back 10, 15, 20 minutes, an hour later. And they're like, dude, thank you so much. Just simple little things like that. Just staying consistent and respectful to everyone in the game.
Josh, I'd like to make sure that our listeners don't miss this. You said you negotiate in a nice way. And I've seen this in my own career where the idea of agency where we represent buyers or we represent sellers, some people interpret that to be we have to be adversarial with one another. But that doesn't sound like what you do.
No, I'm going to out negotiate just about anybody because we've been there and done that. But it's not in an offensive or a slap in the face kind of way, right? If you're coming in low or you're coming in here, like there needs to be an explanation and they need to be able to share that with, say, if you're working for a buyer, they need to be able to share the why and the how and the scenario over here. We're not just trying to slap you in the face. And a lot of times it's hard to just say, hey, you're overpriced, right? And they're like, oh, well, who are you? And then you're going to offend the listing agent because he's the one that agreed to price it there. So, it's just talk. It's conversation. It's not in an offensive manner. It's respectable, but it's doing what's right for my client and my market knowledge and all my stuff kind of put across a little bit less of a blow in certain scenarios. I mean, even as a listing agent, right? No one called you, you get this email and here's this offer and it's like ridiculously low. It's hard to offend me, but I could even be offended. Like, okay, you're just sending me this. There's no talk, no explanation, no nothing. And you just want me to go present it. It's not going to come across well.
So I'm curious, you've done all this business for all these years in a row and you're self-proclaimed as like not the most organized person, no CRM, et cetera. How do you stay organized and what does it mean to you to stay organized? Because that's a lot of business to be doing as a solo agent. Like it's an incredible amount as a solo agent. And so there must be some maybe non-traditional things that you do or systems maybe you use that you don't consider systems, because staying organized and delivering the level of service that you're describing both to the client and the co-op agent and the title rep and the lender, there has to be some consistency around how you go about doing that. And I'm curious about that.
There's definitely got to be that. My 5 big things for years are honesty, integrity, consistency, discipline, and almost most importantly, gratefulness, right? Like so many more people, just life, business, whatever, could make their lives a whole lot better just practicing gratefulness every day. So consistency is huge. I show up for my clients the same way. I'm always respectful, polite to the title companies, all those folks, the lenders I use, I trust them, I know them, they're handling their end of the deal, they're communicating with me. The title company I send tons and tons of business to, they will take care of me above and beyond every single time. So a lot of that stuff, they know me, they're taking care of it, they're communicating with me. Of course, I'm going to email or respond back. These phones we have are pretty crazy. So I'm mountain biking or surfing or whatever we're doing, golfing in Coeur d'Alene, like you can respond pretty quick. But I remember a lot of things. I have a very less than part-time assistant that just makes sure my files and stuff and the paperwork are in so I can get a paycheck. I guess I do a lot in my head. I'm handling all the home inspections, pretty much everything all myself. And my day, this is me right here. I don't have an online schedule. This goes with me everywhere. And it's written in before I go to bed at night. And I sleep a little bit better, but everything's just kind of written down in here. It's a little messy, but I do manage a lot of stuff in my head. I've been asked that question before, how I can manage that many transactions in a year consistently. That is a lot to do year after year after year after year. So
hang tight. We'll be right back.
Climbing interest rates mean less homeowners moving and more uncertainty. You may be looking for a new value proposition. What if you could become the visionary for any staging, design, or renovation need? Style to Design is a staging and design platform, and we invented reality staging and reality renovations. Build your value proposition with access to 1,500 plus design boards, reality tools, customized marketing content, and lead generation website pages. Learn more at styletodesign.com. Now, Josh, I have to ask, was it a conscious decision on your part not to get leverage into your world, to not go out and grow a team?
it kind of was, just by the nature of my business. They're straight up referring me for me and how I took care of that transaction. I remember John Thomas Sinclair, our good buddy, and we all love him. He was the number one agent for units in 2012. I was number 2. Greg Link was number 3. I think I beat Greg by half a unit. We still joke about it today. Matter of fact, I saw him like 2 or 3 days ago. We were joking about it. Two great guys. But, if you follow the plan, you're doing 38-ish units or something in a year, which those were a lot of units we were doing back then. I watched them about that time they started to form teams. I've been the number one agent, like I said, for 2013 to 2022. There were some busy times. I remember I hired an assistant part-time, sit in the office 4 hours a day. And 2014-ish and 2015, she was pretty much driving me to showings and driving me to listing appointments because I had to respond to emails and you have a ton of deals. And so at that point, I did try to hire some people and form a team. And it was an interesting dynamic. I tried for a brief minute to hire some people, and it's just they didn't respect all the work that had gone into all the leads that were coming in. And it was a lot of pressure. I was ended up holding hands and taking more time to do that than just close deals. A lot of those years, I was gone 3 or 4 months out of the winter. November to April, I was in California mountain biking, dirt biking. A lot of people would maybe see those numbers and just be blown away that I wasn't even in town 3 of the months. But just that mental aspect of riding mountain bikes, dirt bikes, whatever that is, hunting, fishing, just being away and doing that stuff, I think kept me mentally sane. And I have a personal trainer 3 days a week for 5, 6, 7 years now too that keeps you going.
You know all these people, right? And you talked about the power of kind of the network you built and the trust that you built with all these people, both prior to getting in the business and then how it supported you once you got into the business. How do you nurture those relationships, right? Because obviously you're taking great care of someone during the transaction, and that causes them to want to refer you and come back to you when they have a need. But how do you stay in relationship with that broad of a sphere of influence?
Probably social media, which I have a love-hate relationship with. It's me and my kid playing, we're hanging out. But if you went to my Instagram right now, there's maybe a number one trophy photo from 2014 or something. It's not really very much real estate. I made a Facebook page solely just so I could advertise my listings. I don't go back and say I just sold this highest price $5.3 million house on Lakeshore or anything, right? I just market the listings and get them sold, and there's not much other than that if you even look at that page. So I would say social media maybe helps keep us top of mind. A lot of these folks I've become good friends with, and you get to know them over, you helped them buy a house back in 2012, you helped them sell that, get another one in 2014, and now they're out on 10 acres in the shop and their careers are slamming. And so I end up getting to help a lot of folks, and they refer me to family and coworkers and friends. And so I'm kind of staying at top of mind that way, but I would say maybe some social media keeps me at top of mind. But I think just that interaction when it was all about them, and I'm ready to kill a deal because I want something done in a home inspection, and they're like, whoa, okay, like we'll take the house. There's just never a doubt that I was in it for them on all kinds of different things. So if you're that way and not letting a paycheck influence you at all, like they're going to feel that.
Oh, I love that. Are you more focused on the listing side or on the buy side in your business?
Neither, because I don't really advertise. But, it's kind of funny. We looked at some of the numbers, and I'm usually of those 56 or 48 or 47 units a year. They were probably a couple more buyer side than listing. And I'm not out cold calling, farming, dripping or anything. It's just I'm out hanging out with my kid or biking or on the lake or whatever, and I just know they'll call me back. So it's almost 50-50, but 3 or 4 buyer sides, it seemed, on most of those years that I tried to pay attention. And that just comes back around. It's crazy, too. Those people are now doctors and like the way I treated them and negotiated and like my style. And I've helped them, multiple people, buy commercial buildings for doctors' offices and commercial blocks and buildings on Sherman for a buddy that's got a business. And it's crazy how it spreads and how many different types of clients and buyers that I have at the moment.
So having been in the business now for 15 years, and you got in 2008, like you mentioned, the market was interesting, although you had a really fast start in terms of production. What have you been experiencing the last 12, 18 months, Josh, in terms of what's happening in the market and what you're doing, if anything, differently about what you're seeing happen in the market?
Yeah, obviously, when the cost of money goes up, that eliminates a whole heck of a lot of buyers. And our folks that have cash and can pay cash are super savvy, and they're holding tight to their money unless they're getting a screaming deal. That buyer sentiment has definitely decreased things. I closed $22 million in 2022, which I think for a solo agent was probably a decent year for 2022. This year, I mean, same. It's just kind of, those rates keep going up. And a lot of people are not moving because we got them in a house 3 or 4 years ago, even though they've got a ton of equity. They're sitting on a 2.875% interest rate, right? So someone really has to have a desire or want or a need or be forced to make a move right now to job loss or divorce or something. So the last property I just sold, 12 acres and house and shop, just closed on last Friday, was a divorce situation. I'm probably only going to do 10 million or so. I really don't pay attention until I get an award at the award ceremony at the end of the year that tells you how many units you did and what your closed volume was. I'm figuring I'm somewhere in that 7, 8, 9 million range, somewhere like that, which I think there's a lot of agents that would probably think that was an okay year, but I've lived well below my means and triplexes, duplexes, and those are all bought years and years ago and pretty low interest rates as well. But I'm not really doing anything different, but I've kind of set myself up to where I don't need to worry about it. It was a little bit of a mind game. I was talking about it with a lender and another person, and oh man, it sounds horrible, but that's actually a pretty decent salary in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, when you don't have any debt and you've got lots of rental income coming in on top of it. So I played a lot this year.
So when you think about the future of your career, Josh, like what do you get most excited about? You've had like an incredible run and still are. You're building wealth through owning real estate. When you think out to the horizon, what are you most excited about?
Well, I love what we do. I love the people. I love all the clients. I've started helping a lot of folks kind of get into the investment end of it. We're thinking first house. We're going to live in that for a year or two. You're going to save up for your down. So I've kind of gone and helped quite a few folks here recently just get on that train of, hey, we're going to build some wealth. Got some good investors. I'm going to continue buying. I'm just going to keep increasing my rental portfolio. And I really love what I do. I love where we live. It's pretty crazy the amount of stuff we can do in a day here and still put some deals together. So
absolutely. And I mean, you're a great example of that. For a lot of people in the industry, right, they can let the tail wag the dog, so to speak, where they become a slave to the job, to the role of what we do. And yet I love hearing the fact that you do all of those extra things. And like you said, living in a place like Coeur d'Alene where you can go out and jump on the water or go ride your bike, go hike in the forest, go hit a golf ball, whatever that might be, and yet still do work is pretty outstanding. Josh, I like to ask this question, and that is, knowing what you know today, if you were to go back and talk to your younger self getting into real estate, what would your advice be?
Oh, 100%. Start buying investment properties as soon as you can. We started in an interesting time, right? So doing that many units in 2010, 2011, 2012, I had plenty of money in the bank to buy 10 3-bed, 2-baths or duplexes and triplexes, but it was still kind of this doom and gloom attitude, right? Or the market's still tanking and short sales and REOs and start buying. Whatever market it is, right? As long as you don't overpay for it in any given market, once you own the asset, your equity starts, right? Someone else is paying the payment. So, it's hard to get a cash flowing asset right now. And you have that conversation with some of these clients like, hey, if you're only going to make 200 or 300, you own the asset, the payments are getting paid. We all shoulda, coulda, woulda, but if I could go back, I would have bought so many properties in 2012, 2013, 2014. I started in 2015 because I needed to put some money somewhere. I wasn't making much in the bank and it was kind of a silly amount just sitting there.
I love that. That's great advice. Jason and I talk about this. We wish we'd bought more houses back in 2006, even though it was the height of the market, but they'd be worth so much more today, right?
Point in case, I get to share this with a lot of clients and it really puts things in perspective. I moved here in 2003 after I finished grad school, had 2 years of work history going into 2005, 2006, and I bought almost at the top of the market. Crazy stated income loans and the 80/20s and the prepayment penalty fees and all the stuff. I'm one of the people that I know that kept the house that I bought at that time and didn't do a short sale or didn't do an REO. And it was tough to make that payment. I could have been living on the lake for that payment, But I signed the paperwork and I kept making the payments, picked up a few bartender serving shifts at night. And, I lived in that house until 2015, bought the current house right next to the mountain so I can mountain bike, kept that house, obviously had a few other rentals, but kept that house as a rental. And in 2020, I sold it, had $450,000 of equity in it. did a 1031 for $225,000 down on a $400,000 triplex and put $225 down on another 3-bed, 2-bath. So I went from that house that I bought, just like you said, in 2006 to, 4 more doors and $450,000 equity. And it was the last 6-7 years, it was putting $800 cash flow in my pocket as well. So.
Listeners, I hope you just heard the mic drop, because that's a perfect way for us to end this conversation.
Yeah.
Josh, that's outstanding. What a great story, and thank you for sharing that. I just want to say thank you for taking time to be with us today and to share your knowledge with our listeners. If anyone has any referrals for the Coeur d'Alene area, look no further than Josh Adams. We'll have Josh's contact information in the show notes. Josh, thanks so much, man. We appreciate you taking the time. This is outstanding.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was fun.
Now, a brief word from our sponsors. Stick around.
Keller Williams Luxury Agents. There's an incredible opportunity waiting for you to elevate and grow your business with KW Luxury Pro. KW Luxury Pro offers earned-in luxury agents the opportunity to elevate your business and secure more referrals by focusing on 3 pillars. 1, the network. Our exclusive relationship and referrals directory connects you with fellow luxury agents around the country for more luxury referral opportunities. 2, the knowledge. Our monthly speaker series brings celebrated business authors, inspiring international speakers, and thought leaders directly to you. Our monthly connection and collaboration series offers the opportunity to learn best practices from fellow Luxury Pro members teaching the playbooks from their own businesses. And 3, the experiences. Our members enjoy unique experiences that go beyond the ordinary. Whether it's touring a $48 million estate with your fellow pro members or going behind the scenes at the Four Seasons private residences, you'll have an experience like no other. Join Keller Williams Luxury Pro today to learn how our members are building meaningful connections, sharing business referrals, and expanding their knowledge in a supportive and collaborative community. For more information, please visit kwluxurypro.com.
Well, Chase, that was an interesting conversation with Josh, different than a lot of the conversations we have, right? And I loved his transparency and his authenticity, sharing how he did his business. So what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, I agree, Bruce. I think that Josh is a great agent, obviously, just based on his results. He's kind of strikes me as a deal guy, right? Like, he likes to do deals. He likes to take great care of the client and build strong relationships through putting them first. And he's confident and comfortable with who he is and how he does it, even though he recognizes that it might not be that easily duplicatable for someone else, right? And that is the beauty of real estate in part, Bruce. There's a lot of best practices. And, Josh shared with us even after we stopped recording that he knows that there's a lot of value in those things. And yet you can be successful in multiple different ways in real estate, despite best practices for those few that are gifted in that way. I would say, though, that there was some commonalities that we see in a lot of the conversations we have. One just being the power of your database and the network that you have and the trust that you've built with other people in your community. Regardless of how exactly you communicate with them or follow up with them or otherwise, the number of people that know, like, and trust you is important and think of you when they think of real estate, right? And Josh has certainly nailed that based on his previous experience and then into real estate. Also, as I mentioned, just his client first mentality and putting the client above any sort of commission or paycheck and doing the right thing for them. That's something that we consistently hear of everyone we interview on this program, regardless of exactly how they go about it, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Josh strikes me as somebody who's very natural at that relationship piece. And I loved, the conversation we had there around how he treats not just his clients, but the other realtors and all the vendors involved in the transaction. I hope our listeners don't miss that, because that is such a powerful way of getting leverage into your world, to be quite frank. Even though he doesn't have a team per se, he actually does. He brings all of those other players in the transaction onto his team to help him get that deal done. So I thought that was really instructive.
Yeah, no doubt. I also enjoyed kind of hearing his experience in a couple of shifting markets, right? So when he first got into real estate, everyone thought that the sky was falling in Coeur d'Alene and pretty much everywhere. And yet he did 18 deals in his first year, basically because of the strength of who he knew, right? So he didn't experience it the same way maybe others did. And it's a good reminder that you don't have to necessarily experience what's happening in the market like others will. And then the second kind of shift the other way that he's experiencing in the last year, and that is having an impact on his business. But one thing he's clear about is, two things I should say. One is that those people that are transacting have a really high motivation for one of a few reasons. And you remind us that all the time on the call. And, he referenced the last transaction he closed that was, in relationship to a divorce as an example, right? And of course, those things are never fun. But the point is, we've got to find the motivated during a time of less transactions happening. And Josh is still able to do that with his sphere of influence. And then I think the second was that luckily for him, even though he's had a little bit of a dip in his income, he is the benefactor of making some good financial decisions with all the money that he made over those years and buying investment property and the income now that's coming in through that. And I think that's a good reminder for those of us in the industry that, hey, when times are great and there's, extra money going around, like what you do with it can make a really big difference later on in your future, right? Regardless of why you may need it.
Yeah. I love that you heard that as well, right? Is that regardless of the fact of what your interest rate is and what you bought and how much equity you have in your property, life events will show up. And as he was talking about that, my mind went to actually a presentation that our buddy Lawrence Yun did last week for a group of operating principals with KW. And he shared some really interesting numbers based on the numbers that have happened in our country, what's going to happen over the next 2 years. So, for example, 7 million newborn babies will come into the world in the next 2 years in the US. 3 million marriages, 1.5 million divorces, 7 million people will turn 65 years old, and 4 million deaths, 4 million net new jobs, and 50 million people will switch jobs. That speaks to what you're saying there, Chase, which is life events show up. And they're all perfectly good reasons for people to think about doing a real estate transaction. So the opportunity, regardless of what the market gives us here now and next year, there's still plenty of people who are going to need to do a real estate deal.
You got it.
Next week, we welcome Northern Lights guests Matt Dimmick and Liz Steele with Team Dimmick with Keller Williams Realty Alaska Group. We'll see you next week on The Real Look. This podcast is produced by Marissa Frost. Visit KWNWR.com to access the show notes from today's episode. Head over to Apple, Google, or Spotify, or really any major streaming platform to subscribe, and don't forget to leave us a review. Thanks again for listening to The Real Look.